My security director has full enforcement authority.
You're
Get down!
Your nephew chose the wrong detective's home.
My security director has full enforcement authority. Derek. Your nephew chose the wrong detective's home. Control that animal, or I'll handle it myself. The man in tactical gear was screaming at my 3-year-old daughter when I stepped into our backyard. Full police uniform. Badge gleaming in the afternoon sun. Gun belt. Mia stood frozen by her swing set, the yellow slide I'd built after her mother died, crying while our Beagle Scout barked at a squirrel. Normal dog behavior. Normal Tuesday afternoon. Then the man drew his weapon, aimed it at my toddler. My detective training processed everything before my father's rage could take over. Wrong badge design, improper holster position, non-regulation tactical vest, unauthorized firearm carry. Everything about him screamed fraud. Everything except the gun pointed at my daughter's head. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your child and assessing a threat, stay with me and hit subscribe now. I'm Derek Lawson, retired police detective. 10 years investigating fraud and impersonation cases before a line-of-duty injury forced me out. Now I raise Mia alone and work as a private investigator. And the one thing I promised my wife Emily on her deathbed 3 years ago, as she was dying bringing our daughter into this world, was that I'd keep Mia safe from every threat. This man violated our sanctuary, the backyard where Mia should feel protected, the swing set that represents her healing from losing a mother she never knew. He pointed a weapon at a 3-year-old because a dog barked. I positioned myself between the gun and my daughter, hands visible, voice calm but carrying the authority of a decade wearing a real badge. Lower your weapon, identify yourself and your authority to be on my property. I'm HOA security, he snarled, keeping the gun raised. Director of Community Safety, I have authority to address violations anywhere in this neighborhood. Your animal is creating a disturbance. Sharon Caldwell appeared from around the side of my house. Too fast, like she'd been waiting nearby. The board president wore her usual business suit and clipboard, her face tight with manufactured authority. Mr. Lawson, Kyle is authorized HOA security personnel. You're interfering with official enforcement. That's a $2,500 fine. I looked at the badge on Kyle's chest, looked at Sharon, looked back at my daughter, who was sobbing and asking why the policeman was mad at Scout. And I knew exactly what I was seeing. Felony impersonation of a peace officer, brandishing a weapon, criminal trespass, assault with a deadly weapon. The HOA president just hired a fake cop who chose the wrong home, the wrong father, the wrong child to threaten. By the time I was done investigating, this would end with federal charges and prison time. But first, I had to get the gun away from my daughter. Kyle, lower your weapon, now! I used my police voice, the one that had talked down, armed suspects for a decade. You're in violation of Colorado Statute 188112, impersonating a peace officer. That's a Class 6 felony. Kyle's hand wavered. Sharon stepped forward, clipboard raised like a shield. He's not impersonating anyone. He's HOA authorized security, perfectly legal. Show me his post certification, I said, eyes never leaving the gun. Peace officer standards and training. Every law enforcement officer in Colorado is required to have one. Show me his. Kyle lowered the weapon slowly, realizing he'd been identified by someone who knew the law. I scooped Mia into my arms, positioned myself between her and these criminals, and pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police, real police. The board chair's face went rigid. That won't be necessary. Kyle, we're leaving. Mr. Lawson, you'll be receiving formal violation notices for the aggressive animal and for interfering with security operations. They left. I held my shaking daughter and called 911. My former colleagues arrived within 10 minutes. Cops take threats against brother officers seriously, even retired ones. I gave them everything: Kyle's fake credentials, Sharon's authorization of armed impersonation, the gun pointed at a toddler over a barking dog. While police took statements, I did what detectives do. I investigated my community. Mrs. Yamamoto, 3 houses down, answered her door, looking terrified when I asked about HOA security. That man, Kyle, he handcuffed me last month, said I was under arrest for garden violations, kept me in his car for 20 minutes before letting me go. I was too afraid to report it. The Rodriguez family described Kyle entering their property without permission, claiming police authority to search for code violations. The Hendersons paid Kyle $3,000 for security consulting after the board president threatened them with violations, and Kyle offered to make problems disappear. Pattern, system, criminal, enterprise. By sunset, I documented 7 families terrorized by a fake cop, all too frightened to report it because he wore a badge and carried a gun. Real police issued Kyle a warning for impersonating an officer. But warnings don't stop criminals. They just make them more careful. That night, I installed security cameras covering every angle of our property. Mia wouldn't go near her swing set, kept asking when the bad policeman would come back. I held my daughter as she finally fell asleep and made a promise to the wife I'd lost 3 years ago. This ends. Whatever it takes, I'm stopping them. Sharon Caldwell had no idea she'd just started a war with someone who knew exactly how to fight back. 3 days after the gun incident, someone knocked on my door at 9 p.m. I checked the security camera feed. A man in civilian clothes looking over his shoulder nervously, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. I recognized him. Officer Michael Torres, City Patrol, 15 years, veteran, lived 4 streets over in Pinehurst Meadows. I opened the door. Torres looked like a man carrying a weight that was crushing him. "Can I come in? Please, I can't be seen here." I let him inside. Torres stood in my living room, wouldn't sit down, kept glancing at the windows like he expected surveillance. His hands were shaking. "I know you, Derek. Worked a few cases with you back when you were in detectives. You're solid. And I need to tell you something before I lose my nerve. About Kyle. About all of it." Torres pulled out a small notebook with trembling fingers. "I've been documenting Kyle's impersonation for 18 months. Every incident I witnessed. Dates, times, victims. I'm a cop, Derek. I took an oath. And I've been watching a felon terrorize people for 1.5 years. Why didn't you report it?" Torres's jaw clenched. 6 months ago, I questioned Kyle's authority when he was detaining Mrs. Chen for a fence violation, asked to see his credentials. The clipboard queen filed a formal complaint with my department the next day, claimed I was harassing HOA personnel, abusing my authority, creating hostile environment. Let me guess, the complaint went nowhere. It was investigated and dismissed, but it created stress, Derek. My sergeant questioned me. Internal affairs got involved. It threatened my career. Torres's voice cracked. Sharon told me directly, "Question my security director again, and I'll make sure your department thinks you're corrupt." I have a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage. I couldn't risk it. He pressed the notebook into my hands, his fingers still shaking. But watching Kyle point a gun at your daughter, that broke me. I'm done being a coward. I'm done letting a fake cop terrorize my neighbors because I'm afraid for my job. The notebook contained 15 documented incidents. Kyle claiming arrest authority, Kyle handcuffing residents, Kyle threatening people with jail time for HOA violations. This is enough to prosecute, I said. I know. Torres looked at me with haunted eyes. I'm a sworn officer who's been covering up felonies for 18 months because the board president threatened my livelihood. Whatever you need from me, you've got it. Testimony, evidence, whatever. Just end this, please. I watched him leave, carrying less weight than when he'd arrived, and understood that even good cops can be intimidated into silence. Until someone threatens a child, then conscience wins. Sharon Caldwell came for me with everything the HOA had. Week 1, violation notice citing my new security cameras as unauthorized surveillance equipment, violating community privacy standards. $5,000 fine. Removal required within 72 hours. I refused. The cameras were legal, positioned on my property, covering the backyard where a fake cop had pointed a gun at my daughter. Week 2. Kyle appeared at my door in full tactical gear, badge, gun belt, the whole costume. HOA has authorized me to confiscate unauthorized equipment. Step aside, or I'll cite you for obstruction. You have no legal authority to enter my property, I said, phone already recording. You're not law enforcement. You're impersonating a peace officer. Again. Kyle's hand moved toward his weapon. I didn't flinch. 10 years as a detective teaches you to read when someone's actually going to shoot versus when they're posturing. Kyle was all posture. I'm calling real police, I said. Let's see what they think about you claiming authority to confiscate property. Kyle left before patrol arrived. But the board president wasn't done. Week 3, $15,000 lien placed on my property for security interference, creating hostile environment for HOA personnel and continued violations. The lien was procedurally valid, even though the underlying fines were bogus. HOAs have legal process, and Sharon knew how to use it. My lawyer explained I could fight it, but the process would take months and cost thousands. Week 4 brought the incident that made this personal beyond my own family. My mother visited from Arizona to help with Mia, 70 years old, never had a legal problem in her life. She parked in a visitor spot. Kyle approached her in full fake cop regalia, told her she was trespassing on HOA property, threatened to place her under arrest for suspicious behavior. My mother, who'd raised me to respect law enforcement, was terrified. Called me crying. Derek, the police officer said I'm going to jail. What did I do wrong? He's not a police officer, Mom. He's a criminal. Mia witnessed her grandmother being threatened by the bad policeman and regressed completely. Nightmares every night. Wouldn't sleep alone. Started crying whenever she saw the swing set because that's where the man with the gun had been. I held my daughter through another nightmare at 3 a.m. and understood that warnings and complaints weren't going to stop this. The enforcer had created a system designed to terrorize, and she'd protect it with everything she had. Fine. I'd spent a decade taking down criminals. Time to remember what I was good at. This wasn't just about HOA violations anymore. This was about protecting my family and every neighbor living in fear. I did what I'd done for 10 years as a detective. I investigated. Started with Kyle Branson's background. My private investigator license gave me access to databases most people couldn't touch. What I found made my blood run cold. Kyle had been arrested 3 times in 2 different states for impersonating a peace officer. All 3 cases pled down to misdemeanors through deals. Fired from a mall security job in Oklahoma for wearing an unauthorized police-style badge. Restraining order from an ex-girlfriend in Kansas after he'd threatened to arrest her during an argument. 0 law enforcement credentials, no post-certification, no academy training, nothing. Just a guy with tactical gear and weapons you could buy at any store, using them to create an illusion of authority. Then I pulled HOA financial records, legally required to be available to homeowners within 10 days of written request. When the documents arrived, I applied my fraud investigation training. Sharon had created the security director position without board authorization. Meeting minutes showed no vote, no discussion, no approval. She'd just done it. Started paying Kyle $4,000 monthly, plus equipment allowances. Over 2.5 years, $120,000 paid to her nephew from HOA funds without proper authorization. But the pattern that emerged from cross-referencing violation notices with payment records was even more damning. The board president would issue inflated fines to homeowners. Within days, Kyle would appear offering security consulting to resolve the issues. Terrified residents, facing a man in police gear threatening arrest, would pay thousands. The Rodriguez family, $4,500. The Chengs, $6,200. The Johnsons, $8,000. Always paid to Kyle's Consulting LLC. Always after Sharon's violation notices. Always under threat of fake arrest. It was a protection racket. Classic organized crime. The clipboard queen issues violations. Her nephew threatens people with his fake badge and gun. Victims pay to make problems disappear. Sharon and Kyle split the proceeds. I documented everything using investigative protocols I'd learned in the Detective Bureau. Chain of custody, time-stamped evidence, cryptographic hashing of digital files, multiple redundant backups. By 3 a.m., I had comprehensive evidence of embezzlement, fraud, extortion, and criminal impersonation. Enough to prosecute, enough to send them both to prison. But I knew from experience that local police could only do so much with HOA corruption cases. This needed bigger guns, state police, maybe FBI if Kyle had ever implied federal authority. I started drafting formal complaints to multiple agencies, each one tailored to their specific jurisdiction. The enforcer thought she was untouchable. She was about to learn what happens when you threaten a detective's family. I was preparing state police complaints when my security cameras lit up with alerts. Multiple cameras. Motion detected at Mrs. Yamamoto's house 3 doors down. I pulled up the feeds and watched a nightmare unfold in real time. Kyle in full tactical gear, badge gleaming. Mrs. Yamamoto standing in her garden, looking confused and frightened. Sharon beside her nephew, clipboard in hand, pointing at garden gnomes Mrs. Yamamoto's granddaughter had painted. "These are unapproved decorations," the board president was saying. "Violation of aesthetic standards." Mrs. Yamamoto tried to explain they were gifts from her granddaughter. Kyle stepped forward, hand on his gun belt. "Ma'am, you're being cited for willful violation of HOA regulations. I need you to come with me." "Come with you? I don't understand." "You're under arrest for interfering with HOA enforcement." I watched 72-year-old Mrs. Yamamoto's face crumple in terror as Kyle pulled handcuffs from his belt. Real handcuffs. He cuffed her wrists behind her back while she cried, led her to his SUV, outfitted with police-style lights, and locked her inside. For 45 minutes, Kyle held an elderly woman prisoner in his vehicle while radioing Sharon about suspect in custody. I was already calling 911, already sending the video footage to responding officers, already grabbing my jacket to intervene directly. Police arrived before I could reach her. They freed Mrs. Yamamoto, who was shaking and disoriented. This time, they arrested Kyle on the spot: false imprisonment, assault, impersonating officer. Real charges, real handcuffs on the fake cop. But Kyle posted $50,000 bail within 24 hours. Sharon paid it. He was back in the community within 48 hours, still wearing his badge, still playing cop. That night, Mia asked me the question that broke my heart. "Daddy, when will the bad policeman go away forever?" I knelt beside her bed, held her small hand. "Soon, baby, I promise, very soon." "How soon?" "As soon as I make sure he can never hurt anyone again." I'd been building a case for state police. Now I needed to make it airtight, comprehensive, prosecutable across multiple agencies. Kyle's arrest for kidnapping Mrs. Yamamoto wasn't enough. He'd made bail, was still operating. Half measures wouldn't protect my community. I needed to bring down the entire criminal enterprise. Sharon, Kyle, the whole corrupt system, and I knew exactly how to do it. 10 years as a detective had taught me that the best cases weren't built on single incidents. They were built on patterns, multiple victims, financial crimes, conspiracy. Time to coordinate a takedown that would end this permanently. Officer Torres called me the morning after Kyle's arrest. "Meet me at the station, conference room 3. I cleared it with my sergeant. This is official now." He was waiting when I arrived. A thick folder spread across the table. Torres looked different, no longer the terrified man who'd appeared at my door. He'd found his courage and wasn't letting go. "I've been documenting more than just Kyle's impersonation," he said. "I've been investigating the whole operation on my own time. And Derek, it's worse than you know." He showed me his evidence. 18 months of documented incidents, 32 families targeted by Sharon's protection racket. The board president would issue violations for minor infractions. Mailbox slightly wrong color, grass quarter-inch too long, holiday decorations up one day past deadline. Then Kyle would appear in his tactical gear, offering security consulting to make problems disappear. "Total financial losses exceed $200,000, Torres said. I tracked payments going to Kyle's. Consulting LLC cross-referenced them with Sharon's violation notices. The pattern is undeniable. But Torres had something even more valuable. Sworn statements from 2 other city police officers living in Pinehurst Meadows. Both had questioned Kyle's authority at different times. Both had been threatened by the clipboard queen with false complaints to their departments. "She's been systematically silencing real law enforcement," Torres explained. "Anyone who challenges Kyle gets threatened with career destruction. That's witness intimidation, obstruction, conspiracy." He pulled out his final piece of evidence, a recording. Torres had been wearing a wire during a conversation with Sharon 2 weeks ago after getting his sergeant's approval to investigate HOA fraud. Sharon's voice came through clearly. "Officer Torres, I suggest you focus on your patrol duties and stop harassing my security director. Kyle has full authority to enforce community standards. If you continue interfering, I'll be forced to file another complaint with your department, and this time I'll make sure it sticks." "She knew Kyle was impersonating," I said. "That recording proves it. She's been protecting him, enabling him, profiting from his crimes for over 2 years." Torres met my eyes. "I'm ready to testify before any agency you bring in, state police, FBI, whoever. I've been a coward for 18 months. That ends now. Whatever you need from me, you've got it. I looked at the mountain of evidence between us. My financial documentation, Torres's incident reports, victim statements, recordings. Enough to prosecute a criminal enterprise. Then let's coordinate a takedown they'll never forget, I said. I spent the next 3 days building evidence packages for multiple agencies, leveraging every skill I'd learned in 10 years as a detective. Each package tailored to specific jurisdictions, each one prosecutable on its own, together forming an unbreakable case. Package 1. State Police, Fraud Division. Kyle's impersonation charges. 7 documented felony counts of impersonating peace officer under Colorado Statute 188112. My evidence included videos, witness statements, photographs of his fake credentials, expert analysis of badge design showing illegal mimicry of law enforcement insignia. Package 2. State Attorney General, HOA fraud and embezzlement. Sharon's unauthorized creation of security position, $120,000 in payments without board approval, falsified meeting minutes showing no authorization vote. Financial records, bank statements, forensic accounting I'd done myself. Package 3, FBI. Federal charges if Kyle ever claimed federal authority during his impersonation. I'd interviewed victims specifically about this, found 3 incidents where Kyle mentioned federal violations or implied DHS authority. That made it federal impersonation, triggering FBI jurisdiction. Also, wire fraud, HOA funds transferred, electronically, and potential RICO charges for operating criminal enterprise. Package 4. Colorado Post. Fraudulent use of law enforcement credentials, operating as peace officer without certification, illegal possession of police-style badge and gear designed to deceive public. Package 5. County District Attorney. Local charges for assault with weapon, gun incident with Mia, false imprisonment, Mrs. Yamamoto kidnapping, criminal trespass, menacing, harassment, witness intimidation, threats against Torres and other officers. I coordinated with my former captain, the man I'd worked under for 8 years in Detective Bureau. He personally walked my evidence to State Police Fraud Division, vouched for my work, explained I'd built the case using professional investigative standards. "This is solid, Derek," he told me over the phone. "State police are opening formal investigation. FBI is interested in the federal angle. And buddy, they're impressed. This is detective-level work." "I had good training," I said. "You had good instincts. And you channeled them into protecting your family and your community. That's what being a cop really means." By week's end, I had confirmation. Multi-agency investigation initiated. State police assigned 2 detectives. FBI opened preliminary inquiry. County DA reviewing charges. The board president had built her protection racket, thinking she was untouchable. She'd terrorized a community for 2 years using her nephew's fake badge and gun. She'd forgotten that some of us knew how to fight back with evidence, law, and professional coordination. The takedown was coming. State police investigators told me they needed victim impact statements. Multiple victims establish pattern, show scope of harm, make prosecutors' jobs easier. I knew exactly where to find them. I contacted every family Torres had identified as extortion victims, plus those I'd discovered through my own investigation. 23 families total. Each had been terrorized by Kyle's fake badge and Sharon's violations. The Rodriguez family invited me to their home. "Kyle showed up in full police gear," Mr. Rodriguez explained, "telling us our kids' toys in the yard were violations. When we questioned him, he threatened to arrest my wife for obstruction. We paid $4,500 for his consulting just to make him go away. The Changs had similar story. $6,200 paid after the board president cited them for fence color, and Kyle appeared threatening arrest. The Johnsons paid $8,000 after Sharon claimed their garden was violating standards, and Kyle handcuffed Mr. Johnson briefly to establish authority. Elderly residents had been hit hardest. The clipboard queen specifically targeted vulnerable people who'd be most frightened by fake police authority. Mrs. Yamamoto wasn't the only victim. There were 5 other seniors who'd paid thousands under threat. I documented everything. Financial records showing payments to Kyle's LLC. Violation notices from Sharon followed immediately by Kyle's consulting invoices. Witness statements describing his impersonation tactics, claiming arrest authority, using handcuffs, threatening jail time. Then I coordinated the trap. Through my lawyer, I requested formal HOA board meeting to address security concerns. Sharon had to hold one within 30 days per bylaws. I made sure every victimized family knew about it. Also notified state police investigators, FBI agents now working the case, and Rachel Morrison from Channel 7, investigative reporter who'd covered HOA fraud before. The meeting would force Sharon and Kyle to defend their operation publicly while law enforcement watched. But more importantly, state police told me they were planning coordinated arrests before the meeting happened. "We've got enough," the lead detective said. "Multiple felonies, multiple victims, clear pattern. We're executing warrants next week. Thought you'd want to know." I sat in my car after that call, watching Mia play in our backyard through my security camera feed. She still wouldn't go near the swing set, still had nightmares about the bad policeman. But soon, very soon, the man who'd pointed a gun at her would be in prison. The woman who'd enabled him would be answering for fraud and conspiracy. Justice was coming at dawn, and I'd be there to watch it arrive. The call came at 5:30 a.m. State Police lead detective. "We're executing warrants at 0600. Thought you'd want to watch." I was already awake, had been since 4. Couldn't sleep knowing today was the day. I drove to a spot 3 blocks from Sharon's house, where I could see without interfering, parked, waited. Dawn broke over Pinehurst Meadows in shades of gold and pink. Beautiful morning for justice. At exactly 6 a.m., 3 unmarked state police vehicles, 2 FBI SUVs, and County Sheriff's Department backup converged simultaneously on 2 locations: Sharon, Caldwell's house, and Kyle Branson's apartment across town. I watched through binoculars as detectives approached Sharon's front door. Professional, calm, methodical. The knock, the announcement, the door opening to reveal the board president in her bathrobe, confusion turning to shock, turning to rage. "Sharon Caldwell, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy to commit impersonation of peace officer, racketeering, and witness intimidation." She started screaming about lawyers, about HOA rights, about persecution. The detectives calmly cuffed her, read her Miranda rights, walked her to their vehicle in her bathrobe and slippers. My phone buzzed. Text from Torres. "Kyle just got arrested at his place. Tried to resist. They found an entire closet full of fake police gear, badges from 3 different agencies, tactical vests, even fake ID cards. Kyle faced 7 counts of impersonating peace officer, 3 counts false imprisonment, 2 counts assault with weapon, criminal, impersonation under federal statute, wire fraud, extortion, conspiracy." The list went on. By 8 a.m., both were booked. By 9, the story was breaking on local news. By 10, it had gone regional. Fake HOA cop arrested, criminal enterprise exposed. The scheduled HOA meeting that evening became something entirely different. Instead of confrontation, it was community healing. Derek addressed packed room of neighbors who'd lived in fear for 2 years. State police investigators presented the charges publicly. 23 victim families in attendance. Media cameras captured everything. Officer Torres stood at the front, in uniform now, and apologized to the community. I witnessed crimes and stayed silent because I was threatened. I failed you. That ends today. This badge means something, and I'm going to make sure it always does. The room erupted in applause. That night I tucked Mia into bed. She asked her usual question. When will the bad policeman go away forever? This time, I had an answer. He's gone, baby. He's in jail. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Promise? Promise. She smiled. First genuine smile in weeks. Can we use the swing tomorrow? Absolutely. The preliminary hearing 2 weeks later became a media spectacle. Courtroom packed with victims, reporters, cameras. I sat in the front row as lead witness, Torres beside me in full uniform. The prosecutor methodically presented the case I'd built. Financial records showing $127,000 in embezzlement, more than originally discovered. Bank statements proving Sharon paid Kyle without board authorization. Meeting minutes I'd obtained showing no vote ever approved the security position. Then came victim testimony. Mrs. Yamamoto took the stand, her voice shaking but clear. He handcuffed me, put me in his vehicle, told me I was under arrest for garden gnomes. I'm 72 years old. I was terrified. The Rodriguez family described Kyle threatening to arrest Mrs. Rodriguez in front of their children. The Chungs explained paying $6,000 under threat of fake police action. 23 families, $200,000 in extortion. When I was called to testify, I described the gun incident with clinical precision. Kyle Branson, wearing badge and tactical gear designed to mimic law enforcement, drew his firearm and aimed it at my 3-year-old daughter because our dog was barking. As a retired detective with 10 years' experience, I immediately identified his credentials as fraudulent. His badge displayed improper insignia. His holster was non-regulation. His tactical vest bore unauthorized law enforcement markings. The prosecutor played my security footage of Mrs. Yamamoto's kidnapping. You could hear the gasps in the courtroom as Kyle handcuffed an elderly woman and locked her in his vehicle. Officer Torres testified about Sharon's threats against real police who questioned Kyle's authority. She told me explicitly that if I continued challenging her security director, she'd file complaints with my department until I lost my career. That's witness intimidation and obstruction. The defense tried to argue misunderstanding, claimed Kyle thought he had authority, suggested Sharon was misled about proper procedures. The judge wasn't buying it. Mr. Branson impersonated law enforcement officers on 7 documented occasions. He brandished weapons, detained citizens, extorted money under color of authority he never possessed. Ms. Caldwell created and funded this criminal enterprise, threatened law enforcement officers who questioned it, and personally profited from the scheme. Probable cause found on all charges. Bail denied. Both were flight risks with access to embezzled funds. Sharon Caldwell sat rigid at the defense table, finally understanding she wasn't above the law. Kyle stared at his hands, the fake cop costume replaced with orange jail scrubs. Justice wasn't just coming, it had arrived. And it was. Wearing real badges this time. Kyle Branson pleaded guilty 3 months later to 15 felony counts, sentenced to 8 to 12 years in Colorado State Prison. No parole eligibility for 6 years minimum. The fake cop who pointed a gun at my toddler would be in his late 30s before he breathed free air again. Sharon Caldwell fought harder, hired expensive lawyers, tried every legal maneuver. Didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. She pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and witness intimidation. 6 to 10 years. Full restitution ordered. $127,000 to the HOA, plus $200,000 to victim families. The FBI added federal charges for wire fraud and racketeering. Sharon faced additional federal time to be served consecutively. The HOA underwent complete transformation. Emergency board election removed every one of Sharon's allies. New bylaws prohibited any security personnel without proper state licensing and board oversight. Financial transparency became mandatory. Victim compensation fund established from recovered embezzled money. My liens were voided, all fines returned with interest. The association issued formal apology, paid my legal fees, thanked me for protecting the community from criminal enterprise. Colorado legislature passed new law, the HOA Security Accountability Act, requiring background checks and licensing for any HOA security personnel, direct result of my case. State police asked me to consult on training officers to identify HOA fraud schemes. But the real victory happened 6 months after the arrests. I was in the backyard watching Mia play on her swing set, the yellow slide gleaming in afternoon sun, Scout barking at squirrels, normal, happy dog behavior, and Mia laughing, sliding, running, safe in the sanctuary I'd promised her mother I'd create. "Daddy, push me higher." I pushed my daughter on the swing I'd built after Emily died and felt the weight of 3 years finally lifting. The promise kept. The threat ended. The community freed from fear. Mia looked back at me, smiled that smile that was pure Emily. "The bad policeman is really gone forever?" "Really gone, baby. Forever." "Good, because Scout wants to bark at squirrels and I want to swing, and nobody should be mad about that." "Nobody should be mad about that," I agreed. If this story reminded you that standing up to corruption is possible, that one person with courage and expertise can make a difference, subscribe and share it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to fight back against someone who thought they were untouchable. Sometimes the fake cops choose the wrong home. And sometimes justice finds its way back to those who deserve it most.